This is Dr. David Proden, and I want to thank you as we begin another journey into school and community safety. If you're looking for industrial safety expert, Appalachian State University professor Dr. Timothy Ludwig, please visit www.safety-doc.com. Again, that's Dr. Timothy Ludwig at www.safety-doc.com.
Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio host, and nationally recognized safety expert, Dr. David Proden. Join us each week as we discuss the best and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. Follow Dr. Proden on Twitter at SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth will keep you safe.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. David Proden, and welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast. So today, we are going into a different area of safety, spiritual safety, safety from paranormal experiences. And I have paranormal researcher and author Ileata Kenley with me today. Ileata, welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast.
Hi, Dave. Thank you for having me.
I'm thrilled. I'm a big fan. I've listened to you, most recently re-listened to an interview that you did with Jim Mallard on his show. And from that, just to inform our listeners, so you are a descendant, actually, of someone accused of being a witch at the Salem witch trials. Is that correct?
Yeah, Margaret Scott.
Yeah.
She was from Raleigh. Raleigh is a Rowley or Raleigh, Massachusetts. I'm not from Massachusetts, so yeah.
And then,
She was,
Tell us that story.
well, she was a widow, and she was about 75 years old, and I'm not sure why she was accused. I know that there's been research done on her by Mark Rice. And he said that they perceived her to be a witch for 20 years before the witch trials. And I don't know why all of a sudden 1692 came along and they decided to arrest her too. But they went to clear to Raleigh and they arrested her. And she was accused by two girls of bewitchment.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
And stuff. But more or less, I think that as in almost all the witch trials and stuff, it was something to do with the neighbors, accuse them, and, it was a way to get back at the neighbors. And I'm pretty sure that there was no witches in Salem.
Okay. Wow. So you shared that most of your knowledge is folk magic based on courses in parapsychology through the Rhine Institute. So tell us about the Rhine Institute and the courses. I'm interested in that.
Well, in 2016, I took a course through the Rhine with parapsychologist Lloyd Arbach, and he's amazing. I like to listen to him any chance I get and stuff. Just the knowledge, the wealth of knowledge that man has. I mean, and it's so interesting to listen to the cases that man has done. I mean, things that, the human mind is amazing. That's
Yes.
what and the things that, the phenomena that he encountered and studied and stuff, it puts basic television paranormal to shame, really. But, and these are all like cases that they had studied, and had, followed scientific methods and stuff. Well, it's really hard because it's spontaneous. Ghost phenomena is spontaneous. That means it just happens.
Right.
and it's really kind of hard to set up a lab and have it happen. So he investigated spontaneous cases, and to listen to his stories and just the knowledge, and they've tested things, and just like a person can affect the random outcome of a machine.
Really?
So
Wow.
there was a study done by Hellman. I can't think of his first name, but anyway, he basically random outcome of a machine and stuff. They found out
Yeah, absolutely.
that a person can affect this, and wow, it's amazing. The human mind is amazing, and I think a lot of people's paranormal problems are basically just the capabilities of the human, and they're thinking that a ghost is doing it, and it's actually probably somebody in the household.
Oh my goodness.
And they don't, well, poltergeist activity and stuff. Their famous case, the Enfield in England, they have parapsychologists there, and basically they figured out these teenage girls and stuff. They weren't doing it, but they were doing it, but they weren't physically doing it. Stuff was moving in the house, and there was, it's amazing.
That is amazing because, I think at first we would think it's external. It's coming from, the spirit world and a different dimension. But the fact that, what we have innate to us in the human mind. And I want to come back to that in just a second. But before we get in, you had a book just released, didn't you?
Yeah. I wrote a book on, there was a series, Axe Murders, in 1911 and 1912, and one of the axe murders happened to Villisca, Iowa, and we did, my husband and family and I, we did, as our family trip, we went to Malvern, Iowa.
Okay.
And there's a hotel there. And, it's a hotel like asylum. It's been there since the late 1800s. And we did an investigation there at Malvern Manor. And I had done some of the history up because I like to know who I'm going to talk to, or if I'm going to encounter spirit, I want to know how to address them. And so I always do research. And one of the owners there was named Ralph Piper, and he owned the hotel in the 1940s. And he had two brothers. And one brother lived in Villisca, Iowa. And the more I got to looking into these guys, the one brother also did work and worked with this Senator F.F. Jones. Well, this Senator F.F. Jones was one of the people that were accused of paying for the murder of J.B. Moore's family, and where eight people lost their lives in Villisca, Iowa. They were June 10th, 1912. They were all found dead. Their heads were all bashed in.
Oh my goodness.
And they thought this F.F. Jones paid a Blackie Mansfield to do it and stuff. And the more I looked into this, I'm going, whoa, these brothers could be responsible for this, because it was just the things that was connected to them. It was like shady, and it was just like one after another, like
Sure.
dominoes. And when I went to Malvern, as I did, I went to, and I asked this Ralph Piper, and I says, Ralph Piper, did your brothers kill J.B. Moore family in Villisca? And I got a yes on an EVP.
Oh my
so
goodness.
I'm like, so I thought, kind of as a project, I would see if they really could. And even more I checked into it, things just kind of like dominoes fell. This man lived like a mile out of town. He bought this house for like a certain amount of time, and after the murders, he basically burns down the house, and it was just kept going and going and going. And then I followed his brother. His brother, all of a sudden, every place his brother was, and like his brother went to the West Coast, people started dying in the West Coast. And I'm like, whoa, this man is the axe murderer. He's the actual trained axe murder guy. And I was like, and I was finding people he was connected to in the towns. And then, just the more it went, the more wilder it got. And I'm like, I cannot believe that a ghost told me this. And I was more fascinated, not with figuring out who murdered these people. I was more fascinated that, hey, wow, I really got a message. And it was a real. And I was just kind of shocked about that.
This, like, was somebody wrongfully convicted? Or no,
nobody was ever convicted of it.
So why do you think? Why do you think you would be told this? Why would the spirit share this? Is it more like
okay? Now this even gets weirder.
Okay.
These two brothers had a falling out so bad that they would never speak to each other ever again. And the more I tried to find out about this and stuff, I kind of got like stumped by the city council, because there was like this guy, he almost got kicked off the city council of this one town because of something to do with his brother's wife. And I'm like,
wow.
He assaulted women too. It was the wildest. You'll have to read it.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
So what's the title?
To Pay the Piper.
To Pay the Piper. So,
yeah, and it's about the Piper brothers. They were auctioneers in Iowa.
Okay. Oh, wow. Wow. Yes, I definitely have it down. So, Ileata, a question I have is, okay, so paranormal awareness, and you've talked about it early in the show already, that the human mind is amazing, and what we are consciously aware of, maybe our capabilities, is only a fraction of what the mind can do and what the brain can do. So let me ask, right away, how do we become more, I guess, aware of either, the paranormal, the spiritual, or if we're in an environment where someone else is projecting brain, I guess, activity or something that's trying to, or that would have an adverse effect on us? What are the warning signs? And I'm saying that because in general, people's situational awareness to just crossing a road, looking both ways and things that, that are very, very overt, that's diminishing. Documentation shows that there's so much more stimuli in the environment today than there was 100 years ago, 200 years ago. And I had shared with you before the show, I read a study that even birds around major cities have modified their mating calls. They've gone to higher tones to go above the ambient noise of the cities. So I'm wondering, as like I go through my day, what could you advise me of? Here, David, here's some things you really should be aware of, and here's how to be aware of them, because I'm probably encountering things that I'm just not. I guess like the antennas aren't turned on or whatever. I don't know how to describe it, but I do have an experience I'll share, but help me out with that.
Thank you for tuning in to the Safety Doc Podcast with the nation's leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin, author, radio show host, university instructor, researcher, expert witness, and consultant. Powerful testimonials. Dr. Perrodin has a strong reputation as the go-to safety consultant, and he was still able to exceed our expectations. When we went looking for an expert in the field of crisis preparedness and prevention, David was the single person we pursued. Not easy stepping into the touchier subjects of life, but Dr. David pulls it off. Take a listen. Now, back to Dr. David Perrodin and the Safety Doc Podcast.
Well, when people tell me they have a haunting or they think a witch has hexed them or, or they've ran across something bad, the first thing we go through, I go through like a checklist with them and stuff. I ask, as in like if the witch thing, I said, do you know someone who practices magic or do you know a witch? And I asked that to him, and I said, do you have evidence that you or your family are victims of curses or anything? And when I say evidence, I mean, has anybody gave you a handmade talisman? Has, or put notes in your, like, Bibles, or there's different things, given anything to you that, you're kind of suspicious of. Are your symptoms explainable by a physician or other professionals? Or like if you've seen a psychiatrist, how is your general health? What kind of medications are you taking? What are you experiencing? Are you experiencing cold spots? Do you feel like you're being watched? Unexplained shadows, things moving or disappearing, or electronics in your house acting up. There's a whole host of things you need to ask, before you even say this is paranormal or somebody has hexed you or something. Like you were saying about electronics and stuff, infrasound, cars and diesel and different things produce infrasound, and infrasound, it travels like real low to the ground, and it can go for a long distance.
Right.
And there's a lot of different things, like medications even for blood pressure medications for psychiatrical things. I'm trying to think of them all here. Parkinson's disease, there's a lot of different medications. Oh, even sleeping medications, Ambien and Lexapro is for psychiatrical, and depression and stuff. These all can produce hallucinations, voices,
And sometimes people then also get caught between that sleep and awake state, and then what they're perceiving during that time can be interpreted as paranormal or supernatural, spiritual. And we talked about this too. You said this in your interview with Jim Mallard. You talked about how people can manifest their fears, and meaning you had a context around this, which I really liked, and it was, what do we see on? Well, first of all, there's so many TV shows now with different ghosts investigating, and a lot of these are very sensationalized. So of course, it's the drama, and then it's a cut to a commercial and things, but everybody investigates at night to add to the drama. And you had said, why investigate at night? What's different at night versus the day? So if someone takes you on, if you buy tickets for the haunted boat ride or the haunted downtown tour, well, you're already predisposed to expect that something is going to happen that's going to be unusual. It's going to be more along the lines of being perceived as haunted or something like that. So tell me about how much of that do you think is going on, and especially I mean, for my oldest daughter, I mean, she loves Ghost Adventures with Zach Bagan. Just and so I'm watching the show, and I do like the history, and I like parts of the show, but again, it's always there's something that's dramatic that's going to happen, and then there's a cut to a commercial. So it what is research versus what is entertainment, those lines. But then I think those things stick with people when it gets to be dark at night and the winds start to howl and stuff like that. So help me understand, what are people coming to you more today because this has just become more mainstream, like on TV channels and stuff like that, or is that not happening?
I did notice, when our team and stuff, it was like people. I belong to a paranormal team, Synergy Paranormal from Harvard, Nebraska.
Okay.
And I did notice that people would ask us to come investigate their house, and they would want to invite their friends and everything else, and go along with us. And it's like, wow, we can't do this, because, it's like, they wanted to have a paranormal show in their house, and stuff, and that's kind of hard, to pick and choose the cases because people don't understand that it's a lot of work goes into a paranormal case, and we do this for free. We're there to help you,
right?
And not really entertain you. We want to help you with your problem. We want to know what's going on. There could be something really serious in your house. If your, gas water heater is leaking gas or radon gas or something, this stuff, it can kill you.
Right.
And it also can, cause symptoms of the paranormal and electromagnetic interference. There's a lot of things we go and we check out and stuff. And I was with two ladies there were the most awesome ghost communicators. They're nice, calm, they have a good energy, and they would be the best ghost communicators. But when you sit there and you pile all these people in a room, you can't do EVP work at all. There's
Sure.
too many people around.
Sure.
And you mix all these energies of people too, and it makes it really hard and stuff. I never want to kick the family out. The family has the right to be there, and they're part of, the phenomenon, or if there is any, might be directed around the family. But it was like when they would start to bring everybody and stuff, and it made it kind of hard. And I don't think they realize the work we go into, and when we do it for free even,
So you went through the checklist. I'm gonna bring back to when you research the history of a location. What are sources that you go to, and I guess what are you looking for?
Well, what I do usually is I like to know who the past owners of the house, and I look for people that had an emotional connection to the house. And I look at their stories. Sometimes I look on Ancestry.com. I look at military records on Fold 3. The Latter-day Saints has really awesome sites. In fact, I don't think there's any better genealogists than the Mormons.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, they keep records on everybody. They're probably better than the CIA, to be quite honest with you. But I use all these resources, and I try to find out about the person. Find out, did they lose a family member in the house? How long did they live at the house? Did they build the house?
Yeah.
Did something happen at the house? I look at old newspaper clippings, and I really, sometimes I think I get obsessed. Well, I know I do, but I like that part of history. I like to find out. I want to find out what's going on. There's people from different parts, in Nebraska especially. There's people from Germany, Sweden, Ireland,
right.
We have their African Americans come here. Native Americans lived here. This was their home for thousands of years. And well, all these people brought different customs with them, and different maybe religious practices, different folk magic. So, when, just like the Irish, it was not uncommon for them to bury a horse head in the doorway. Russians used to not bury, but they'd put a doll in the wall, and they would invoke a house fairy.
Yeah, okay. I've heard about that.
Yeah, and Germans did the same thing. We had German people here that practiced powwow, which is a magical practice. It's like Christianity and folk magic and stuff. And I had a case here where the people that lived there had practiced powwow, and it was quite interesting.
So describe folk magic, because I haven't heard that term before.
Folk magic?
Yeah.
Folk magic is it really covers a wide range. It was it came over with the Pilgrims, and probably some of the English were called cunning folk, and is folk magic, and it came over with the Pilgrims and stuff. And then you had the folk magic with the Native American. They have their folk magic, and then you had the African American, and this all like kind of combined into hoodoo magic, which is a mixture of African American, English, and Native American. Hoodoo is actually American magic.
Okay.
That's what I would call it. And the powwow came over from Germany and Pennsylvania Dutch, the big old hex signs on the barns and stuff.
Right.
That's folk magic.
Okay.
You've probably practiced folk magic. Have you ever blew out candles on a cake and made a wish?
I have.
Well, that's candle magic.
I have a birthday a week after Halloween.
There you go. You're going to practice candle magic. You're going to make a wish and blow out the candles.
Okay. I didn't know that. That's amazing. So
we practice a lot of different folk magic. People hang horseshoes over their doors, for luck. That's folk magic.
All right. I mean, now I've got it. Yeah. So Ileata, somebody contacts you and they say, you know what? Something's not right. I've either, am perceiving shadows, things moving. I believe I've heard voices or whatever, but they're saying, something's not right. Can you come in and go through the process? So I'm going to bring us back to what are things like. Okay, so I'm very scientific. I'm very empirical, and that's part of the PhD process. But with that, I'm also, I think, very educated and open to the fact that there is much more to the world and to existence than what a machine can measure, and even what our traditional senses, which we would identify as sight, sound, touch, and things like that. But there's much more, like, for example, we know infrared is out there, and there's whole string theory that there's multiple dimensions. And so I think these things will become more self-apparent in time. But what are things right now, like, just if you were to advise me, say, Dave, here's some things like you should look for. And you did mention, like, if people are giving you something, but what would you say, like, to say, what are things during my day, or like in my house or in my routine, or just that should start to throw up some red flags that I should be like, yeah, something's not right here. And it's probably beyond something that is, such as coming down with an illness or a medication or something like that.
that, okay, if you went through the whole checklist and stuff of things that could be wrong or explanation stuff, and you still have things going crazy like doors opening and stuff.
Yeah, let's say yeah, that's something. Let's say I'm contacting you and I'm saying, you know what? During the night, I've got fire. The fire alarm downstairs is sounds, and when I walk down to the bottom of the stairs, it stops. And then I can hear doors open and close, and I go, and doors are closed downstairs. There's no wind or anything like that. And so if I'm sharing things like that, I guess what follow-up questions would you say? Like, well, what else? Are you also encountering what? Like, what would be things that would probably go with that?
Well, usually when you have like doors opening and closing, you hear footsteps and stuff.
Okay.
I would ask them, have you had a relative that's passed recently? Because if this all of a sudden happens, and that's one thing, I'd ask them if you've gone to any funerals recently. Have you been to a cemetery recently?
Okay.
And stuff. Believe it or not, they do. You do encounter that. And
Well,
I would,
yeah, go.
yeah,
Go with
I
that.
was just trying to think, there's other things too. Have you have you heard anything? Have you heard any voices or and stuff? And then I would say, okay, we'll bring them two ladies that I used to work with, Chris and Sue. I would say bring them in especially and see if they could get anything that's in the house to talk. Because if there's anything in the house to talk, they'll talk to them.
Okay.
And I've heard the most amazing evidence with them. And
Is it that what's in the house is communicating directly to them, or is it communicating via EVP, like they're asking questions and then later they can play back and they can actually hear the response? What's happening?
well, Sue, I like to call her. Her and her sister Chris. They just, I don't know. They're really good at talking to ghosts. They just have that niche. And Sue, if she can use a ghost box, and I've heard the most amazing evidence come out of it, but if I use it, it's just gibberish.
Okay.
But if she uses it, I mean, they just tell her name and stuff. I've turned on that ghost box and it says, "Where's Sue? Where's Sue?"
Like, no, Anita's here today.
Yeah, it doesn't want to talk to
Anita's
me.
here.
It just wants to talk to Sue.
Yes.
And I'm not kidding. It's just amazing. And we've gotten full names. I mean, they just spit out their full name, and which was really relevant to the place, the investigation. And I thought that was amazing. But
So,
yeah, there's a lot of things we can do. And stuff. We can come in and we can check this out. And
so what are some of the things that people should probably never do? And I'm gonna, for example, someone decides that they're going to use a Ouija board. They're going to conduct their own seance. I mean, and what can happen if somebody tries to address this without really knowing what they're getting into? Like, what have you seen, like the worst case where someone has gotten way over their head in trying to handle this on their own, that they've opened up, for example, I don't know if it'd be a portal and then they've made things 10 times worse. How does that happen?
well, Ouija, for one, as far as I know, Ouija boards are they're just, it's just a game board.
Okay.
I don't personally think they open up portals and stuff. But what I will say is that you're focusing your intent on talking to a spirit. Whether you're using a Ouija board, whether you're using a ghost box, whether you're just trying to get EVPs or using tarot cards, you're focusing your intent to talk to ghosts. Now, we were talking about dimensions and astrophysics. What if people open up dimensions in their own brain, you know,
Right.
and maybe that's how they're communicating with whatever. And maybe some things come through that aren't too nice.
Okay.
And I don't think it has anything to do with that piece of cardboard or board you're working on. I think it has to do with the person doing it and stuff. I kind of, I read about like exorcisms and stuff because I was kind of interested,
Yeah.
in that. And a lot of them people that end up possessed are deeply religious. That means they pray. They pray and maybe they're opening up that area in their brain when they're praying. And just the same as they're trying to talk to the spirit, because they've pretty much proved that it's an ediometer. I think I'm saying that word right. Response that moves the planchet on the board and table tipping and stuff.
Right.
And it's your brain. It's automatic muscular movement that takes place without being, you're not conscious of it. You're doing it. So I don't think the Ouija board has anything to do with opening up a porthole and stuff. Now, I think that a person may be able to do it in their own brain.
Yeah. What if somebody, sits in their living room and starts to, try to ask questions or to become challenging. I guess what's been one of the worst case scenarios you've seen where someone has done things that they shouldn't have done and then they've made it worse?
Done things they shouldn't have done, and well,
like one is probably not to taunt the spirit or to threaten it, or
yeah,
maybe that works. I don't know. I mean,
well,
how does that happen? Because it seems like you have a very respectful way and a conversational way of approaching, a spirit. But yet, what if somebody just comes out and they're yelling and out of my house, and you're not welcome here? And I guess has anything like that happened where you've been like, oh no, like don't whatever you do, like don't do this again, because this is a horrible approach. Like, and it's also not safe, for you to do this.
well, one time before I had belonged to a paranormal group, I had went to the cemetery and stuff, and I had invited a group that I'd found online, and I'm like, you got to come to the cemetery, it's haunted. And it's one of the stories in my other book. It was Spring Ranch Cemetery. And so this team comes down, and he brings a couple Native Americans with him, because that's what I kind of suspected was at the cemetery, was Native American spirits. And, well, they were really interested in ghost hunting. They decided to drink and urinate on the graves.
Oh my goodness.
And they were urinating all over the Civil War veteran graves and stuff. And I don't know. I felt very, very wrong about that. And it bothered me for a while. And even when the after, I don't think I went back to cemetery for a couple of years, but when I went back, I apologized and stuff and everything. But that is something like, don't go teasing spirits and stuff and yelling and screaming at them and everything. These were people once that had hopes, dreams, families, and a person that is not nice in life is probably going to retain part of that personality after they pass away, if they are still around,
Right.
if that is the case. And I don't think probably you should irritate them, or I don't know. I would just leave them alone. And I guess I don't even know how to say that. It just mortifies me when I hear people, yelling, "Get out of my house, you demons," and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, whoa, because
So, so what's happened in some of those cases? I mean, because I'm guessing in some cases it's just manifested more response from the spirit, or if it's disrespectful, as you said. I mean, purely, going and desecrating a graveyard, you're just inviting.
Well,
trouble,
negative people are going to draw negative energies, and they're going to draw these lower level negative energies and stuff, because I do believe in the spirit world. I mean, I say a lot of scientific stuff, but there's a lot of things you got to check out on about a haunting before you say this place is haunted, or there's a ghost moving around, or something like, and everything. But I believe in these energies. I believe in earth energies, elementals and stuff. And these energies have never been human.
right?
They and stuff. And let's say you have people, magic practitioners. It doesn't even matter what kind. And they're conjuring up these earth energies and stuff. And they're doing some kind of spell with them or whatever and stuff. And they don't dispel them. They just leave them. And these things grow mad after a while. I think Lip Castle is one example in Ireland. It has some kind of elemental in there. It's never been human, but it's been there for hundreds of years. And It doesn't like people, and...
So do you say it doesn't like people? So let's say I'm there. How am I going to get the vibe that, I'm not liked and my presence isn't welcome there? What am I going to pick up on?
Well, I think humans, like animals, got a fight or flight response.
Right.
You kind of just know, something is not right. When I feel something's not right and stuff, I kind of get this tense feeling, and it's almost like everything about you starts vibrating and chills, and I've had headaches and I've gotten sick to my stomach, so I know something is a little weird here. And then I've had that happen, and then walk outside and the symptoms completely go away. And if there's no like gas leak or EMF bleeds or anything like that going on, something's going on. And like I said, you have to really check this out. And I'm trying to think how to say it.
Well, let me give you an account, and
Okay.
and maybe this will be a springboard. So you had mentioned, places that a person goes that can bring forward, and one was cemetery. And before that, you also mentioned if someone had passed that they knew, and all of a sudden, things start happening. Maybe that there's a cause and effect there. But so I was biking, and when I'm done, it was a long bike ride. I was out probably 6-7 hours. And when I came back, this was in June. I biked through a cemetery out on the edge of town, but it's one of the original cemeteries. And I live in the third oldest town in Wisconsin, and which was this, and very close to. I live within 15 miles of Man Mound. It's one of 2 man effigy mounds still in existence in the United States, and several mounds in the Wisconsin Dells area that I actually bike right past. So it's in the Winnebago Indians settled right where I live, actually, like in my residential section of town. This is the Indian Hills subdivision, and this is actually where on the maps the encampment was, like literally where my house is. And then is the Indian Agency House, built in 1812, and then Fort Winnebago in 1824, which there's only one building left, which is, as the crow flies, about a mile and a half from my house. So, and the Black Hawk War, was very close to here. So anyway, I'm just to kind of frame out that this cemetery is has gravestones going back, to the 1850s. And I'm going through this cemetery, and it's all, curvy roads and stuff like that, because it wasn't laid out in any type of sensical, format back then. And it just expanded over time. It's still, to this day, there are still burials there. But I'm going through one portion of the cemetery, and this is a sunny afternoon, and instantly, in an instant, it seemed like I entered a dark fog, and I didn't hear anything, but I felt just completely sick. Like I was going to be sick to my stomach, like I had lost all energy, and I'm feeling great. Like this just hits me. And in my mind, I don't hear anything auditorily, but in my mind, I hear, or I'm processing, leave, like not get out, not a get out, but leave here. And I think I verbalized, yes, yeah, I've got it. And I kept biking, and about a minute later, I was out of the cemetery. Felt great. Everything's back to normal. And I kind of just tried to process, and it was an older part that I was going through. I didn't see anything. But it was, outside of, like I said, this kind of darkening effect. And it was what strikes me most, I lead out of that, was the fact that it was like there was this voice that I heard, but I didn't hear it through my ears. It was it was in my head, and it was very clear, like, leave here or leave this area. It was one of those two. And I just immediately was like, yes, I will. And I wasn't being disrespectful. I was, very appropriately, just coming through the cemetery on the paved path. But that was, I wouldn't say it frightened me, but it was like a clear directive. Like if someone says to you, do this, and you're like, yes. And that's exactly how it was. I've never gone back, by the way, so I just don't, I took that as a perpetual directive of, so I don't know. So as I'm telling you that, and I would say I wasn't, I came out of that, I wasn't dehydrated. I wasn't going through anything rigorous. I mean, it was just what would be some follow-up questions you'd have for me, or what might that have been? And then also, like, does something like that stick with you afterwards, or was I, what, I'm trying to understand it. It's rolling around in my mind. I don't know what to do with that.
Thank you for tuning in to the Safety Doc Podcast with the nation's leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin, author, radio show host, university instructor, researcher, expert witness, and consultant. Powerful testimonials. Dr. Perrodin has a strong reputation as the go-to safety consultant, and he was still able to exceed our expectations. When we went looking for an expert in the field of crisis preparedness and prevention, David was the single person we pursued. Not easy stepping into the touchier subjects of life, but Dr. David pulls it off. Take a listen. Now, back to Dr. David Perrodin and the Safety Doc Podcast.
I would say that wasn't malicious. I would say that was like a guardian angel. Somebody was telling you to leave. It's not get out or anything. They just told you to leave. and they wanted you to leave. And I've had similar things happen. I don't always hear things from the ears. It's a mental image. Mediums, you, they, it's a mental image. They talk. It's a mental thing. So people that experience this, it's there. You obviously have some sensibilities or some abilities, because that's people that see ghosts, hear ghosts. It's all what they call psi.
Okay.
And you really need to have Lloyd Arbach on one day and stuff and have him explain all this to you. But
So you've had that happen to you, though. I mean,
yeah.
and what you're describing, and I wasn't, I mean, outside of being in a cemetery, but I didn't feel anything as I went in there. Again, it was a sunny day. I was feeling good, and I went in there because it was a good way physically for me to wind down the ride, because I knew, the road, the path going through there, the paved path was curving and up and down and things like that. And I had it in a low gear, and actually, I mean, I was very respectful. I appreciate the designs on a lot of the gravestones.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yeah, it was, so as I got to that point when that happened, I wasn't at all, I would say, like, predisposed. There was nothing at that point which would have made me think that something was going to happen. And then when it happened, like I said, it caught me completely off guard. And I would say it was both. I mean, it wasn't like a get out, but it was also very
It was
direct.
telling you to leave.
It was very direct. There was
some
no
reason,
there was
some
doubt.
reason, and it wanted you to leave, and it wanted you to leave now. I've had the same thing happen. I've gone into places and I've had to leave, because you just have to leave, or you just have to go. And
So what you're
it's
saying,
nothing new. If you've ever read the Bible, the same, I mean, God talked to Abraham, God talked to these people, and stuff. God didn't just sit there and say it. He talked to them in their head, so maybe it was
Wow.
God telling you to go. You never know.
So what I never thought until, we've talked right now, I always perceived that as being a negative, that was more of a warning. But, you know, you're pointing out that no, it probably wasn't.
No, it was probably a warning. Maybe something bad was going to happen. Maybe, how do you know that you didn't leave and a tree branch fell down right in that spot after you left?
Yeah.
I bet there might have been a reason. What do you think it stops people from all of a sudden they're about ready to get on that plane, and all of a sudden they get a voice telling them, no, don't go, don't get on that plane. And so they don't get on that plane. They find out the plane crashes right after they leave.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. I've had things tell me, don't go, and things have happened to them, people and stuff. I've walked up to a investigation and had to tell the rest of the group I have to go home. I can't do this investigation. Just can't.
Okay.
Something's telling me no. Something, and yeah, I've had that happen. I've had the same thing happen that you say, that things just get all weird, and something tells you. So, it's your gift to sigh. Everybody is capable of this some way or somehow. People that practice magic, they meditate and stuff, and they communicate with their higher being or higher self and stuff. Every religion, people, Hindus and stuff.
Right.
I mean, whatever is telling them, it might be just their higher, I don't know how you would call it, deity, or who you look up to, or spiritually, or even the earth. I don't know. I don't know who it is that talks to you, but I've had it happen to me too.
So how do you, so like, this is something I wasn't expecting. And I would say, again, I wasn't at all trying to manifest it, because again, I'm for the most part, I mean, very, my studies are all in
Science based.
in science.
Yeah.
And, but as I'm looking at this, I'm wondering, okay, if I was capable of that, and I'm going to give you another time that something happened, which I definitely think was correlational. But how do, if somebody says, I'm able to do this, or this is starting to happen, or I'm starting to be able to identify some things, how do you get better at that? Like, how do you, because I mean, I'm going to be 47 in a couple of weeks, and this is something I don't ever really recall as being younger, but maybe it's something that is an awareness that I'm gaining a little older in life. I don't know, but like, what would be your advice to me of like how to, okay, if this happened once or it happened twice, how do you get in tune to make it so you can connect to this more often?
Oh, well, a lot of people practice meditation and stuff. I don't know if I practice meditation as much as I end up falling asleep. I'm really bad at it and stuff. But a lot of people find their self in the Bible, their religion or their spirituality. There's a lot of things. I mean, I hate to say dwell on stuff, because the same thing that we were talking about earlier, you dwell on this stuff and everything, and what, just so you don't dwell on thinking, okay, I want to contact Zozo and stuff, and then pretty soon you have Zozo.
Right. I mean, because I'm looking at this, I'm saying, well, obviously, I mean, you could go back to the location, but then if you're doing that, then you're kind of expecting it and you're surrounding yourself, in a cemetery versus, so I'm going to give you another example of something that I encountered, and this was about 10 years ago. So I talked earlier about we have this remnants of Fort Winnebago, which was basically a fort that was placed here in Portage, Wisconsin, in 1824, in case there was a revolt by the Winnebago or Chippewa or the Indians in this area. And that actually, the Black Hawk War happened kind of throughout here down to the La Crosse, Prairie du Chien area. But nothing in this immediate area. There weren't any conflicts. Actually, again, there was an Indian agency house where it was more like an exchange of goods between the government and the tribes that lived in this region. But there's one structure built in 1824, and it might have actually been built before that. It might have been in 1818 by traders, but they do know in 1824 that this structure, and it still exists today. And it's surgeon's quarters. So next to it was a hospital, and the hospital, of course, served the fort, and it also served Native Americans and just the population, the farmers, I mean, of the area. So we're talking about roughly from 1824 to maybe like 1840. And I volunteered to be a guide at this surgeon's quarters. So I got trained and again, a volunteer guide, completely unpaid, because I loved the history and we were kind of new to the area. And I remember one very specific day that, So something I asked is, I said, some of the building was in disrepair, and I said, I'm willing, and I think I have the skills to remedy some of these things, like the fence and the well, and the shutters and some of these other things. Like, I can do this, and I can address these things and address it in a way that's going to be using tools of the era and things like that. And actually, my dad helped me with that. We rebuilt a 200-foot split rail fence by hand, with logs. It was phenomenal to do that. And but I had started. So they gave me permission, and it's a historical site, but also it's there's not really much funding for it. So it's kind of one of these things of, once they got to know me and trust me, that I'm not going to destroy this 1824 relic of the city. And so I had started to work on the fence in front of the structure, and as I was going up, like the second day to work on it, I'm the only one out there at this time. It's a day that it's closed, like Sunday or something like that. And I park my car in the parking lot. I walk up, and as soon as I get to the fence where I'm about to begin working, the alarm sounds on my car, and the lights are flashing, with the alarm, and the car's facing me. And I'm like, that's never happened before, like ever happened before. So I'm like, nothing is working with my fob. And so I go down to the car, stops. I'm like, okay, I don't have to touch the car or anything. I walk back up, and the same thing happens. And as soon as I commence the activity that I'm doing, so I can literally look down 100 feet, and this starts again, and there's nothing down there. There's no wind. There's nothing. And again, it's probably the only time it's ever happened on the vehicle in the 6-7 years that I owned it. And then by the third time, I just stopped when I was up there, and I think I just said out loud, I'm helping. Like, I'm respecting, I'm helping, I am going to do a good job. And it stopped. And when I had rebuilt that fence and rebuilt the well, and and I'm digging, and I'm finding bones, and I'm not finding human bones, I'm finding like bones of animal bones, and I'm assuming that the family that lived there at the surgeon's course. But also, I'm thinking the hospital was like within 10 feet of me, where the structure was. That was no longer there, but what happened in that hospital had to be just horrific back in that age, from whether it be diphtheria or whether it be amputations and things like that. I mean, just but once I felt once I said that, it was almost like I'm saying, you can trust me. Like, there's nothing I'm going to intentionally do. It was almost like I felt welcomed.
You did exactly the right thing. The exact right thing. That is, people, I always tell them, just tell them, say, this is my home. I live here now. You're welcome to stay here, or you're if you behave yourself, or just leave, take back your home. Tell me, mean no harm and stuff. Obviously trying to talk to you, but you did the exact right thing. And I'm right. You have a gift to say that you did. It's your gift.
And
a lot of times that's all spirits want, is to be acknowledged. Like, hey, I'm dead, but I'm still here. And you're in my house, by the way, and stuff. Like here at the house here, there's a lady here, and she died in 2005. She died of a heart attack. And I actually looked her up and stuff, and she doesn't ever bother me. I've had a couple of weird things. I got an EVP I caught the craziest thing ever. I was going through evidence and stuff, and I just took my iPhone and I videotaped it off the evidence that I was going to, because I just was going to send it to Chris over Facebook. And so I took my iPhone, I videotaped my laptop and stuff, and I don't even listen to it afterwards. I just send it to Chris, and Chris, oh, that was really cool. I heard that girl say that. And I said, what girl?
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
and so my iPhone caught an EVP of this girl saying, you're scaring me.
Oh,
How in the heck are you scaring a ghost? And I don't know if you know Kate Ward's friend Brian Anderson. He does all the thing. I had him analyze this and stuff, and it wasn't physically voiced. He put it on his machine, and he went through it, and whatever it's saying, you're scaring me, and it's like you can hear it just plain as day. It's not physically voiced, and it's in my house. I just thought, I said, well, that's got to be that lady, I never even thought about that. She's never spoke before. I've never heard her speak. I have chimes in my house. They've never rang and stuff. I just know she's there is all. And I just thought that was the craziest thing ever, that you're scaring me. How in the hell you scare a ghost looking at ghost evidence?
right. Oh my goodness.
And stuff. It's wild.
So, especially, okay, let's talk about Nebraska. We have just more development happening. One of the things, for example, where I live, it was very common. My neighbor's 92, and he lived here his entire life. And when we moved in, we had a lot of conversations just, on the porch and stuff like that. And he said that when the city started to expand out, like in the 1950s and 60s, he said it was very common for people to, add on to their house and dig up, some bodies that were buried because of, this was a site of trade. It is the only, they call it portage because you could have gone from the Fox River out to the Atlantic, and then you could go onto the Wisconsin all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. So this was a trade route for over 10,000 years. They have artifacts to prove back to that. But he was saying, yeah, this was very common, like throughout the city, and it wasn't really a big deal. I mean, he said you could look back in newspapers and find someone added a garage, and they uncovered 4 burials. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I didn't realize that. But is this something? So, okay, we were out in South Dakota this summer on vacation, and we were in Mitchell, South Dakota. We were stopping. And one of the things in Mitchell is they were discovering a lot of burial sites. And they do have actually a museum now. But I mean, this is more recent stuff that they're finding as the city expands, and they're changing, like, they're damming water or they're lowering waterways and stuff. And are you also seeing that because people are building out, that they're disturbing sites and things are happening that
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that.
Well, Palmer, Nebraska is in Howard County, and it's in the central part of the state, and it's right there on the Loup River. Well, this was home to the Pawnee Indian, and there was a specific tribe called the Skiddy Pawnee. Well, they practiced human sacrifice, and I think the last one was in 1840 that they know of, and it was of a Lakota girl. But anyway, the town of Palmer got built there, and in, I don't know, it must have been late 1800s and stuff, they discovered, I don't know, hundreds of like relics and stuff and burial sites around there. Well, the farmers just dug them up, and they mass buried some of them. Some of them ended up in museums. Some of them were sold and traded and stuff. And yeah, well, we've done an investigation there and stuff, and that exactly was the problem. They were they were hearing drums, they were feeling nervous and stuff, and it was, yeah, that can cause a haunting. And there's another one, Culbertson, Nebraska. They moved like 3 cemeteries in that town and stuff. And
right.
As far as I'm concerned, that's one of the most haunted towns in Nebraska. It's all over the town. One of the stories was that we had went to do an investigation there, and the lady's granddaughter, she was probably about 6 years old. She came out there and she goes, you know, this witch lady comes up out of the ground, points at me, and then goes right back in the ground.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, what? No. She called her a witch lady and stuff. And her mom come out there and I said, she's telling me she's seen that. She says, I hear it all the time. She says she sees this lady come up out of the ground, point at her, and then go back on the ground. And then we also had this mentally handicapped man who we actually found very credible and stuff, because he had no reason to really lie to us. He told us that he had went to a birthday party, and at this house, that it was the house that we were investigating, and this man took him for a walk. The man got in him and took him for a walk. And we're like, what?
Okay.
The way he made it sound is that this man just basically took him over and then took him for a walk of the town and left him across town, almost like driving a car. And I just thought that was the craziest story that I'd ever heard and stuff. And he was real adamant. He was like, I don't want that to happen again.
Yeah.
You know, but I guess the terms jumped. You know, that when a spirit like jumps a human, I've never had it happen, you know, but I've heard, you know, people talk about this. And this was the first time that I'd really experienced him, you know, this mentally handicapped guy. He was just telling us all about it. And he was like, you know, you got to get rid of this guy and you got to do this and you got to do that. And we're like, oh, okay, we'll try.
So, Ileata, something I see on TV portrayed a lot is someone will say, I felt a burning sensation, and then I lifted up my shirt, and then there were claw marks, you know, down my back and stuff like that. And that seems to be a common theme on the TV shows of people saying, felt the pain, and then there was this visible, deep scratch or something like that. And have you ever encountered that? Anyone told you that? Has there been? Okay.
I've had that happen to me, and we used to live in this house in Roseland, Nebraska, and I know this is gonna sound crazy, but that goes to like shop vac. And one day I was up and I was vacuuming the cobwebs on the ceilings because we had these really huge ceilings. So I was standing on a chair and I'm vacuuming. I felt this burning thing on my leg, and I'm like, what the heck? And I stopped, and I had scratches, you know, and there wasn't nothing on the thing, but it literally felt like sting marks.
Yeah.
And they got real red and stuff, and they disappeared after, I don't know, a few hours, but it literally felt like something stung me, and it was 3 claw marks. And yeah, I'd never had that happen before. And stuff. And the only thing I can think of is it was that shop vac. That ghost didn't like the shop vac for some reason. You know, if I was vacuuming the hall, I kept getting this like rushing feeling at me and stuff. And too, you know, I thought, you know, shop vacs put out a whole bunch of like EMF and infrasound and stuff. But actually what I think these scratches people get are, one time I was in a car and the lightning hit near this car.
Okay.
And I had the same kind of marks on me. They were kind of like these red streaks on my legs and stuff. And I'm thinking maybe it's some kind of static electricity charge from them. You know, if they're energy, if the spirit is energy, what if they're just like a burst of static electricity, and that, you know, maybe it's not actually a claw mark. It's just these red marks that end up gluing up your leg. and stuff. I mean, that's my theory. I have no idea for sure. And,
So what is, as we kind of, come to a close, what was one of the most, I guess, powerful or, with the most evidence, maybe the most frightening investigations that you ever participated in?
well, one time that spring ranch that I wrote about it in one of my books and stuff and everything, my husband and I, it was like the year 2000 or 2001, I think it was. We took our kids down to Spring Ranch. We were gonna like scare them, give them a spooky experience.
Oh.
Well, we had showed up after a thunderstorm down there, and the whole air of the place, it just felt like static charge. It felt like something was in the air. And I remember we got out of the car and stuff, and we're all looking around and stuff. And my husband and Chad, my son, they started to walk across this thing called Potterfield where there's unmarked graves. And they got clear across the thing. And all of a sudden, I had this like vision, like it was just like right there, like your fog. It was a big old horse, like pulling a hearse and thing. I mean, you could hear that clip, 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 and you could smell the sweaty horse and the leather.
Yeah.
And my daughter just all of a sudden flipped. She didn't see this, but she's like, we got to leave, and we got to leave now. And she got in the car and just started crying. So I'm like, okay, this is weird. Something weird going on. So I was like, Kurt, Rihanna's crying. We got to go. We've freaked her out. And so Kurt and my son start walking back across the field. My son all of a sudden starts running. My husband looks down, and he said the ground looked like little black snakes slithering through they were like foggy snakes slithering across the ground and stuff. And when he got back to the car, the whole tree line sounded like Fort Apache. It was like, woo, woo, woo. And this is at night. Birds don't do that.
Right.
And it was like really weird. And we all like jumped in the car. And by this time, I'm pretty freaked out too. And we drive out of there. And we probably drive a good 5 miles till we get to like Highway 74. And they were like, what just happened?
Right.
That was just the craziest thing ever. Because when things like that happen, I don't know, your mind, it takes a little bit to process it. It did me anyway, and stuff. And when we got home, we all gathered around the laptop, and I said, okay, we're going to see what's going on here. And so we punched in a Spring Ranch, Indians and stuff and everything. Come to find out, in like I think it was 1864, in August of 1864. I might be wrong on the date. There was an Indian massacre that same day that we were down there 100 and some years earlier. And stuff, and I don't know if that was it or, there's more to the story too that we find out later about, the Elizabeth Taylor and John Jones that were lynched on the bridge there and stuff, and they're buried there at Spring Ranch. In fact, that picture of me, I'm leaning up against Elizabeth Taylor's grave. That's at Spring Ranch. And so I don't know if it had to do with that or it had to do with just being down there on the anniversary of Indian massacres and fights on the Little Blue River. I don't know. But, but it was like, that was probably one of the most profound experiences I had, where I had like all the things happening and went somewhere. Everybody heard the Indians. I don't know if I can't prove they were Indians, but whatever was in the tree line, we all heard it.
Right.
And it was not just one or two. It was loud. It was a bunch of them. It was like we were going to get attacked by Indians. And yeah, it sounded just like Fort Apache. But it was a very profound experience. And I've never had anything that intense before happen. I mean, where the feeling was fight, like I said, fight or flight. You know, you had to get out of there.
Oh, it's terrifying.
Yeah,
Wow.
well, you just know you have to leave. You have to just go. And that was when it was weird that none of us say anything. My daughter didn't even cry. I mean, she was crying before we all got in the car. I don't remember her crying. I don't remember a peep out of anybody. Everybody was like this. My kids are probably like, we are never going with mom and dad again and stuff because, oh my God. Like I said, we didn't even say anything until we got like to Highway 74 and then we just looked at each other. What just happened?
Yeah.
What was
Oh,
that
God.
about? And my husband, he just said, I don't know what that was about. He said, he did tell me later though, had the kids not been there, he would have ran back to the car too. Because he walked.
So
He held his ground and walked back to the car.
okay, so that was a question I was gonna ask. Are there any times, because this was the flight response, but is there a time when it's like, no, I'm gonna stay here, and maybe it's when you're investigating, or maybe when you're advocating for someone else, where you've clearly it's been uncomfortable, but you've made the decision, no, I'm going to stay here. And I don't want to say confront because that just doesn't sound like that's the right thing to do, but
Hold your ground.
hold your ground. I guess,
Yeah.
tell me about a decision to hold your ground, and then what happens? I mean, or what has happened?
Well, this happened here in town here. It was that girl with the spirit boxes that I told you that she dug all these boxes up in her yard.
I remember
and stuff.
that because the family
And
was from Poland, or what was it? And they were
no,
practicing.
they were Santeria.
Yes.
It was a Mexican American family, and they practiced Santeria. And they had buried these boxes with trees in the yard. And when she had moved into the house, yeah, these trees were like all like crazy, and she was like, why would they even plant a tree there? So they pulled up these trees, and they were gonna redo their yard, and they found all these boxes, and she never even thought anything about them. She opened them up to make sure they weren't like little animal coffins or whatever, but her kids were playing. There was beads in them, hair, all kinds of stuff. They scattered them all over the yard and everything. Well, when I went to cleanse that house and stuff, I remember that day I was there. That gal was there. Her sister was there. Her sister was sitting. The gal was out in the garage smoking a cigarette. Her sister was sitting in the house, and I was starting to cleanse the house. Literally, that house moaned. I'm not kidding you one bit. And I never ever have had it where I couldn't keep the sage lit. It just kept dying, except that gal's house and her mom's house too. It happened once before when I went and did their mom's house. The sage would just go out. You'd have that stick blowing, it just go right out. And I finally got it going and stuff. And the more I'd cleanse this house would literally moan. It was just like, have you ever been in an earthquake? Have you ever?
I haven't. No.
Okay, well, I used to live in Los Angeles, and they'd have like these little earthquakes all the time. And the house would like moan, and we'd have an earthquake and move or shift or whatever. That's exactly what this house sounded like. It moaned, and I told myself, okay, that's not normal. And I had this terrible uneasy feeling, almost like something's like jitter on you and stuff. And I told myself, I cannot walk out and leave this gal.
Right.
She's having all these problems, and stuff. And so I cleansed the house, and then I went back again. And the second time I cleansed the house, it got better. And the third time I cleansed the house, it got better and stuff. And the last time I cleansed the house, I took my grandma's Bible in there, and I read Bible verses in every room and stuff and everything. Because I figured out if I was going to take anybody with me, I was going to take my grandma. And I read verses in every room, and I figured I was going to have backup with her.
So you talked about things happening. So what was actually happening in the house?
Well, the gal that lives there, she has gifts, and she will always live in a haunted house. You have haunted places, you have haunted people. She will always be haunted because she is a medium.
Okay.
She don't like to be a medium. She don't want to be a medium. But this is something she cannot just shut off. She will always have these problems. And she's such a nice, wonderful gal. I mean, she volunteers for stuff. And here she'd volunteered to go out to this old cemetery at the asylum and clean the weeds and stuff and take care of it.
Yeah.
Well, I think she brought home some crazy people because she started seeing them around her house. She had a man in the corner with a diaper on, an adult man. He would just sit there and huddle. And she had all these things happening. And then you had that lady that practiced Santeria in the house and stuff. And the terrible thing is that I felt sorry about this gal is that she's always had these haunted problems. And when her husband now bought this house, they asked the realtor, I want to make sure nobody has ever died in this house.
Okay.
And the realtor checks it out. Nobody has ever died in this house. She said, okay, we're going to buy this house. We didn't know that the person before it lived in the house was a Santeria witch and was conjuring up this thing and burying boxes in the yard. And yeah, I've kind of felt sorry for this gal. But like I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what house she's going to live in. She's always going to pick up ghosts because ghosts see her as a bright light in a vast darkness. And they're going to come to her. You know, she's that kind of bright person. And she always will see ghosts and stuff. And I think she's accepted now that she's not cursed, you know, or anything else. It's a gift to some people and stuff. She just needs to tell the spirits, you need to leave. I cannot help you, you know.
So it is verbally doing that. So that's the advice that you're giving. If somebody is, I guess, seeking, they're not sure if something's happening to them or to their house. I mean, how do they find paranormal investigators? I mean, because you just don't look that up.
Well, you can now anymore on the internet.
Right, I guess with the internet. And what would you advise if someone wants to genuinely, I guess, how do you determine the credibility of a paranormal investigator if you're contacting? How tell me about that. Let's leave with that.
Lloyd Arbach has, in fact, I belong to his group, Office of Paranormal Investigations. You can probably contact him, and he has bunches of different groups, and they're called parapsychological research. That's a big word for me to say. Anyway, he has a list, and he has people like all over the country and stuff that do things. He also has a fantastic foundation, and I got it right here. It's called the Forever Family it's foreverfamily.org. Okay. And they're 100% volunteer, and he's the president, and these are mediums. These are certified mediums. These are ones that have been tested by parapsychologists. And they volunteer their time to help families with grieving. And in fact, their goal is to further the understanding of afterlife science through the research and education while providing support and healing for people in grieving.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't have to pay these people money. I mean, they do this volunteer and stuff, and they can help, you know, because sometimes people are haunted by a family member. A family member wants to get a message to them. And you can talk to them, or if you need a paranormal investigation, you can check out your local paranormal investigator. So you can contact somebody like him, and they can set you, he can send you the right direction towards a team that's close to you.
Okay.
And you can find him on Twitter or Facebook.
Just in the last minute here, as you were talking about, you're working with people who are going through grieving. Is it grieving that brings in the spirit connection? Is that what you see a lot? You know, like
I don't
someone who's
know.
passed in
I
the
mean,
family, or is that, you know, someone? You said you're helping people deal with the grieving process.
I'm not helping. He helps people.
Okay.
I help people with their haunted problems.
Okay.
I help people that believe that they've been hexed by witches.
Right.
You know, I help people with that kind of problem and stuff. I took some of Lloyd Auerbach's classes, and I was totally amazed by he had made this foundation and started this foundation and stuff of volunteer psychics and mediums and stuff that want to help people. You know, they don't want to profit, they want to
Right.
help people.
Right.
And that's why I kind of like support him, because I'm all into that. And I don't charge people to help them, because I can't guarantee you that I can get your ghost out of your house. Because for one, nobody even knows what ghosts are for sure.
Right.
I mean, I have my idea that they're like conscious energy and stuff, but nobody knows for sure. And like what we talked before, you know, these people's portals or whatever that they think they have in their house and stuff actually might be just stuff that is their own minds creating. And you have to make sure that you're not encouraging somebody's mental illness for sure.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And stuff. And
Yeah.
I guess I do have one safety thing I like bring up for
that.
parents and
Appreciate
stuff.
that.
And watch what your kids are watching on YouTube. You know, there's some pretty scary stuff on YouTube. I mean, literally, you have people that are showing you how to, like, big Divic boxes.
Yeah.
Mess with necromancy and stuff. Cast hexes on other people. Learn to do witch spells. We just had recently... the cosmetic line was going to put out this, like, it was Sephora was going to put out this beginning witch kit. And it had all these things in it and stuff. They basically took like portions of this person's spirituality in this way, and they boxed it up, and they were going to sell beginning witch kits. Well, not all witches are good, and not all witches are bad. Not all pagan religions are good, and not all pagan religions are bad. But it's just like any other, spirituality, religion. You have your good and your bad. And kids don't need to be casting spells on other little kids because they're pissed off because they're playing on a playground or whatever.
Right.
You know, so be careful. Watch what your kids are watching on YouTube. Pay attention, because there is some scary stuff out there.
So I have one question left, and then one kind of self-awareness that you've brought me to in the last few minutes. And the one question is, so how would somebody know if they have been hexed, like, or a curse has been placed upon them by someone else? How do you know? Brett Kavanaugh, for example, we've seen. Yeah. I mean, but it could be anybody. But we, that's been, someone. Okay, we're going to have 100 hexes placed upon you. How does somebody realize that they've been hexed?
Well, if you've gone through all like the checklist of stuff like that, you can have a lot of the symptoms that are in haunting. It can cause depression. Your relationships with other people fall apart. Unexplained mood swings and stuff. There's a lot of different things. I mean, I helped a lady. I had wrote to you before. I'd helped a lady. She had bought these candles
Yes. Yes.
off of SD, and she bought them from a witch and stuff, because they were supposed to have some kind of magical power. I don't even remember what she bought it for. I think it was money, had to do with money or whatever. But anyway, the gal, it took her like 2 or 3 months to get this candle or whatever, and she left this lady, this witch, really crappy review or something on the thing. When I said, well, she got this candle, and she said she lit it, and it smelled like cat pee
Yeah.
or urine and stuff, and then she said she started to have cure things in the house, and she said her plants started to die and stuff in her house and stuff. And when I went there, I said, well, let me see this candle. She still had part of it and stuff, and you could see something black in the center of it. And I'm like, well, let's see what's in this candle. And so I cut open this candle and everything, and there was this glob of black thing with pins stuck in it and stuff. And it was all like in the center. And I was like, wow, I mean, I think that you made an enemy with this like gal,
Right.
And I suggest you probably write her an apology, and we'll try to take care of this. So I took this thing and I put it in a jar, and folk magic, I took it to a crossroads, which is a 4-way thing.
Yes.
And I buried it.
Okay.
I buried it with and I put some sulfur and some black salt on it, and I buried it. And I went back to her house. And I told her, I said, you need to take like a bath. Take a bath with ground salt. I put some sea salt. Take a bath with sea salt and stuff, and wash yourself clean and everything. And then I helped her. We wiped down her house. I took like vinegar, and I put some herbs in it. Well, it's called Four Thieves vinegar.
Okay.
And I put it on a rag, and we wiped down most of the house and stuff. And then when she mopped her floor, we took lemons and we squeezed it in her water. Now, it changes the vibration of the house. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I guess there's the saying cleanliness is next to godliness or whatever has a meaning, And so we went through and we wiped down things and stuff, and it worked. It worked for her. But be careful what you're buying from people, and stuff. Yeah, just things like that can happen, and
Wow. So
yeah.
well,
I don't know. No, I don't know if it was her guilt. Now, see, then you got to think too. Was it just her guilt of writing this lady a bad review that brought badness on her? I don't know. I meant, but I said, whatever we did, I just know to do that in folk magic. Just do that, and it worked for her.
So something that I thought of in the last few minutes is trying to figure out in the last. So my awareness, increasing in the last few years, like what's corresponded to that? Has there been any event or anything like that? And actually, there is that I didn't realize until something you had said about, was it Lloyd, with the healing of people,
Mm-hmm.
of people who are grieving. I volunteer, but I'm trained, and about probably pretty close in timeline. I'm a person that is contacted by the county, by the sheriff's department, when there's been a traumatic event for first responders, like a drowning, car accident, something very, very, with gruesome fatalities. And I'm one of the people who's been intensely trained and brought in to meet with the team when they come back to the firehouse, or whatever it might be. It's ranged from a drowning of a young person, to accident on a ski hill of a person in the medical field. But when I went through the training, which was really intense, but the training, and I'm actually the only civilian. It's probably because of the PhD and all of the research I've done, and I was recommended by a priest who's on the team that they extend this training to. So, but it was at that time. So I work with people when they are at their most fragile. I mean, it's literally maybe the 20-year-old firefighter who has taken this person they found them in the water as they're looking, and they literally have felt them with their feet as they've been walking through, and they reach down and pick up this, and they talk about the look on this person's face that they brought up, and as they're trying to resuscitate. I mean, it's just all of this, and I'm leading everybody with somebody else, but I mean, this goes for hours. These go late into the night, and they don't happen very frequently, but when they happen, I mean, they're very, very intense. And it can be everybody from doctors to nurses to it has to be somebody who is directly involved and impacted by this. And of course, it always is a fatality or multiple fatalities. And so one of the things is, like, I can feel the weight of everybody coming into me, and it's almost like I've never broken down, although like people will break down during this, and then you'll help build them back, or else there'll be counselors to bring them back. But it was at that same time that that's the starting point, I think, of this awareness. I mean, as we've talked, like, that definitely that timeline matches almost perfectly. So I think the training, and I think the exposure to people in these situations and the role that I play is probably directly sharpening those skills that I have. And I'm definitely becoming better at it. Like, I can read everybody in the room. I can know the follow-up questions to ask. And it's so incredible too, because you wear, in this whole process, I mean, there's a certain way that you dress that makes it less likely for people to remember who you are, because when you interface with somebody in the community in a grocery line and they're ahead of you, you don't want them to turn around and say, "Oh, that was the person that debriefed me after this traumatic event." And I remember I was voting, like, literally maybe a week after I had been in this like 7-hour debriefing, which was completely exhausting. And I went out for a late night run, maybe like 2 a.m. or something, after that. And in the voting line, like, next to me was one of the people who was significantly impacted by this traumatic event. And she was with other people and doing, a smile and all of that. And I mean, these are just responders. These are people who, and she looked at me and she didn't recognize me, and she, just kept doing it. And I was like, this is, wow. Like, that is, I mean, this is a person, who cried, in front of me for 5 hours, with a group and things like that. And, so anyway, I think as you talk about Lloyd, and I need to look into that a little bit more, but I think I have an answer to why the awareness has increased. I think I purposely have increased it through the training, and then through what I've been doing with people.
Well, being empathetic,
and it's people, yeah, it is so draining, as you know.
Oh yeah.
It's completely fatiguing. You can't talk about any of the specific things that happen. I mean, that's you don't. But I remember, so one person asked me, why do you do this? Like, why do you do that? And I said, I do it because, like, if I didn't do it, who would do it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, I'm good at it. I was a firefighter years ago. And I mean, I feel like I'm capable of doing this. And, but it is something too, like when you leave, you just vanish, like nobody knows who you are and all of that. And you only you announce yourself by your first name and things like that. But
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a special person to connect to somebody on that kind of level and stuff. I'm a very introverted person, I guess that's what you call. I kind of just prefer my own company and stuff. And I guess it's hard for me to connect with people on that kind of level, I guess. And I kind of admire somebody who can do that and everything, because it's hard. I mean, I'm yeah, I don't even go to funerals because it doesn't even matter if I know the people. I'll bawl like it was my best friend.
yeah,
And stuff. And I think I absorb everybody's grief. And then, it's like, I'm like terrible in emergency situations because I panic, and stuff like that. I admire people who can do that.
wow.
You have a gift.
Well, it's something, and I'm glad that I have it, and I appreciate it, and I embrace it, and I think it's serving me well. And I mean, I also feel I think more settled, just as a person. It's amazing. Well, Ileata, again, how can people find out more about you and again your book about the Axeman?
Oh, the Pay the Piper. And then I have another one coming out. It's called My Haunted Journey of Nebraska.
Yeah.
It should be out, I'm hoping, by Halloween.
Okay.
And stuff. Yeah, you can find me at Ileata on Twitter. And my name is Ileata. And I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm working on putting together a Facebook page from my books. I'm just not very good with techie stuff.
Now your books are like on Amazon. You can find
Yeah,
your books? Okay.
Amazon.com. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I would recommend that to anyone, and any shows that you've been on, I've really enjoyed, and we'll continue to locate those. And
Well, thank you.
This has been the Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio show host, and leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Remember to check back each week for the latest, best, and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. You can find Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth will keep you safe.